suppose the message at half-time, a bit sloppy in that first half. What did you say to the players when you went into the tunnel at half-time?
Oh, we didn't need to say much because they knew that a couple of key parts of our game, which were being patient and being accurate, they were neither. So we just needed to... We had plenty of intent. We were being physical, which we wanted to be against the British and Irish Lions, so that part was fine. But we were just a little bit inaccurate and a little bit not patient. It's a quick conference, isn't it?
Eh? Mustn't have been an exciting game.
Sorry, we weren't going to risk passing the mic over the top. Jordie Barrett, talk a little bit about his performance at first five in the second half. He looked like he was just an absolute natural there.
Yeah, it's something that we've been looking at for a little while. The initial plan was to switch him around into centre, push Vince so to the wing and play Ngani at fullback. But we felt at the time in the second half when we were chasing the game that to put Jordie into that 10 position where he's pretty happy going to the line hard and he's got a pretty good offloading game, and it also allowed us to take Ngani off the right wing and put him at the fullback where we probably have some additional counter-attack options off him in the middle of the field. So yeah, I was happy how that worked.
Brad, just wondered if you could tell us how the forward confrontation right throughout the match and the breakdown was looked pretty tough there.
Yeah, it's bloody tough. Obviously, some Northern Hemisphere players are bloody big, and yeah, we try to obviously take them high sometimes, and they've got a bit of momentum there. So, mate, it was a tough effort, and they're pretty good over the ball. And at times we were pretty slow to get them out of the way, so that kind of slowed our game down a little bit. We like playing off fast ball, but mate, it was physical. We knew that, and yeah, it's just a good opportunity for us to play against some big men and a different sort of code, which was good.
Were you surprised by Gatland's use of the bench, and do you think it gave you an advantage in the last kind of 10-20 minutes? Did you feel like the Lions players were getting tired?
Well, it was interesting because was it interesting for us? We thought the makeup of the bench was interesting in regard to, you know, whether that was a clue to were there players in that group that had the carrot dangled in front of them around selection for Saturday or not. And it didn't appear with the way the bench was picked that he was looking for particular answers to that off the bench. So we thought that was interesting. And one of the things that we did talk about was the fact that if we went deep into the game, we backed the energy that we get off our bench would probably be as good as or better than theirs. And I possibly think that happened.
Chris, did you think yellow was a fair penalty for the Henderson clean out on Jordie?
Well, I was a bit horrified when I was listening to the mic, and at first they were talking about nothing because, I mean, clearly he was tipped well above the horizontal, and that starting point for that is yellow, and depending on... It's a really interesting question because the penalty around that, as I understand it, it depends on where you land. It doesn't have anything to do with the intent, and so you can accidentally land on your head or accidentally land on your shoulder or accidentally land on your back or deliberately land on those things, and that determines the penalty. And, you know, I think it was probably an orange in my mind, so it was somewhere between a yellow and a red.
Bowden at the time, and is he okay? Sorry for Jordie.
Yeah, no, he didn't. He didn't suffer any ill from it.
Brad, we talked earlier on about the work you guys are doing at set piece, particularly scrum time and the challenge ahead of you. Could you just talk about how you felt that went tonight?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good actually. We obviously conceded a free kick early, but I think that gave us energy more than anything. And as I said earlier, that it's that Northern Hemisphere rugby is highly focused on their set piece. So you're right, we put a lot of emphasis on that, and I think we did pretty well, apart from a couple of line-out drives that obviously they got the better of us, but a majority of that game, our scrum was working really well, and our line-out strike worked really well once we got going, so pretty proud of the effort on that front.
Chris, could you just talk a little bit about Ngani Laumape's growth as a rugby player since he switched from the NRL?
Well, he, last year for us, he was sort of in that learning transition. He was a great schoolboy footballer at Palmy Boys High. Got lured to the dark side and went and played in the NRL, and his childhood dream was always to be an All Black, and so we had an opportunity to contract him, and he grew last year, but he came back in superb. Worked incredibly hard in the off season, came back really fit, and it wasn't the case at last year. And I think that gave him the opportunity to do more things, and he just has got more confident in. He's got a more rounded game than people give him credit for. He's got quite a nice little kicking game. He's obviously brutal on the carry. He's becoming a much smarter defender, and he's a tough man to mark. And I think he's going from strength to strength, both on the field and he's been great in our environment this year off the field too.
Brad, when you came off, you're holding your chest. Did you do some damage there, or were you just knackered?
Not too knackered. I would have stayed on there if I could. Just a knock on my sternum. So it's pretty gutting to come off. I mean, I would have loved to stay out there, but when you get to a point where you're making it hard for others around you and you feel like you're hanging on, then there's no point. You might as well get someone who's fresh on there. And pretty gutted to come off, but we'll assess that situation tomorrow. Hopefully it's all good.
Can I have a follow-up? Chris, how much are you thinking about Super Rugby in the latter half of a game like that there, knowing how deep you are in the season and the position that you're in and the importance of the games coming up?
There were parts of the way that we played the game that we thought were important for us to get right, both for the British and Irish Lions game tonight and for the Crusaders game in a couple of weeks' time. And depending on that game, we go to the Stormers or the Brumbies, and they have a similar set of challenges. So we had one eye on the British and Irish Lions and one eye on what we needed to make sure we got some confidence out of this game on to go forward to those other games.
Yeah, Chris, would you be concerned if you were the All Black coach and was 1-1 going to Eden Park with that refereeing that did tonight?
It's really interesting. It's hard to talk about that without going back and looking at it clinically. We felt we were on the wrong end of several decisions, but it's different. The French got for a start, they don't commentate the game, so they just let it happen, and they adjudicate on what they see without sort of coaching and talking stuff through. So that's a different style. We were pretty aggrieved about the first scrum penalty, where we thought we had a dominant scrum and couldn't understand why that happened. And there was just a couple of little things that we thought perhaps were tough. I don't. It would be wrong for me to make an assessment now on his performance in relative to the third test until we have another look at it.
Brad, maybe did he have control in all the off the ball stuff that was happening?
Yeah, well, he's obviously talking to me and giving me a heads up on what he wanted. As Jordie said, felt like a couple of times that we wanted to play with some fast ball that we were struggling. But look, as Jordie said, you're in the fire, and sometimes I don't see everything, and he makes a pretty quick call on what he thinks, and without watching it into too much depth, he made some good calls, and he obviously made some hard calls on us, and that's the way rugby goes sometimes. So.
Brad, it was 31-all. I mean, and you had a chance there. When the game final whistle, and maybe Chris as well, how did you feel? I mean, the game was there for you?
Yeah, it's a little bit frustrating, to be honest, because we thought we had the upper hand in most aspects of that game, except for obviously a couple of soft tries that we let in, that intercept and a drop ball. And obviously our discipline to get a few penalties on the board, and obviously good at kicking goals. So it's frustrating on that front that we probably could have done a little bit better on the scoreboard. But I mean, at the same time, we came back hard in that second half, and really put them under pressure. And I think if we carried that through the whole game, had that mental drive through the whole game, I think we could have done a lot better. But yeah, obviously proud of the result and the way we came back, but it's a little bit frustrating at the same time.
For me, I think if you were a complete neutral and you're looking at that game and it was 4 tries to 3, of course I'm a complete neutral saying this, 4 tries to 3, 2 of the 3 tries were off an intercept and a dropped high ball. When I reflect on that game, I think that the Hurricanes had the better of the game neither side will be happy with a draw, clearly. We're probably, I don't know what we are, but, you know, it's a bit like kissing your sister, isn't it?
Excuse me.
Just an observer of the game, Chris, is there, what do you think of the second test? Is there any reason that the All Blacks would be concerned?
Well, you know, I think despite the fact that it must be one of the very difficult things on a British and Irish Lions tour, you've got 4 nations that you're trying to mould together into one, and I'm sure that that has its problems in the first place, and you're carefully trying to disguise 2 teams really as one team. So, you know, they'll be talking about the fact that we want to be one team, but in reality there's a Wednesday team and a Saturday team pretty close to it. So I think it would be very difficult to draw a correlation between the Wednesday team's performances and what you can expect on a Saturday. I don't think the two have anything to do with each other at all. So when we did our analysis, we spent far more time looking at the Wednesday games than we did on the Saturday games, just because, yes, they play a similar game, but we're looking for the strengths, weaknesses and opportunities of the guys that are inside that game, and generally they were quite different. How many of those guys have forced their way into the Saturday's test? We'll find out the next couple of days, I guess.